This is the CFF Big Board Show. John, we are back on the mic. I'm your host, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, back as always with John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. John, an exciting episode for multiple reasons. It kicks off our 2022 college football series. It is the first CFF show now that we have fully switched over to the Rookie Big Board, so it completes our daily podcast segment. Very excited about it. What we're going to do on today's episode, we are going to go through our top 24 consensus CFF quarterbacks for the 2022 season. Me and John each also picked out two sleepers for the end. I want to point out here, whether you are an avid college fantasy football player, just trying to dip your toes into it, a Devy player, just excited for the college fantasy football or just the college football season, we tailor these shows to a wide audience. So there's going to be a little bit of something for you no matter what. Before we jump into it here, want to remind folks that this is brought to you by the Rookie Big Board, patreon.com/the FF Educator for Dynasty Devy rankings, access to the Discord, just $3 a month. Get in there, chop it up with me and John. Have a good time. John, my man, back on the mic. How we doing?
I'm doing great. School's almost over, my friend. I've done 4 college fantasy football mock and real drafts already. I finally published on Fantrax my player profiles of the top 24 players of quarterbacks. And I feel really good about the rankings and who I like this year and how to approach the draft. And for all of the viewers tonight, the rankings that we are going to have tonight are Matt and I combined rankings. So what we try to do is we try to give you multiple perspectives so that if I'm high on someone and Matt's lower or vice versa, you have a little better of an average of where the player might be better valued at. So we want to make sure that everyone understands that this is our combined rankings of the top 24 quarterbacks.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it here. Viewers on YouTube, leave us some comments. Let us know who we are too high on, who are too low on, who we snubbed. Listeners, let's chop it up in the Discord. Make sure you let us know how you feel about our rankings because we know already that you got some feelings. Here we go, 24 through 19, our consensus college fantasy football quarterback rankings for the 2022 season. Starting here, number 24, Aiden O'Connell, quarterback out of Purdue. Anthony Richardson out of Florida is our consensus 23. Coming in at 22 is Jaron Hall out of BYU. Phil Dracovic from Boston College, number 21. Clayton Tune out of Houston, number 20. And rounding out our first group here, John, is Devin Leary, the quarterback out of North Carolina State. A lot of directions we can go in here. I find this first group really fun, John, because we have some high upside picks like Anthony Richardson and Jaron Hall. And then you have some safer guys with Aiden O'Connell and Devin Leary. So there's a little bit of philosophy and strategy already coming into things. In general, do you like approaching some of these safer guys in this range, or are you shooting for some upside?
This is a fascinating group because I think it depends on how you roster build. There are a lot of people this year that I've seen that are waiting to draft quarterbacks late. And if I'm one of those late round quarterback builders in college fantasy football, I love this group right here, Matt. You can get your classic pocket passers, Devin Leary, Aiden O'Connell. You're looking at between 3,500 and 4,000 yards passing. And both of them should have easily over 30 touchdowns. But they're not going to get you a lot of yardage with their legs. You know, they might scramble for 1 or 2 touchdowns, but nothing huge there. Or if you really want to go for your high-end potential, a quarterback who could end up in the top 10 scorers, you're looking at guys like Clayton Tune, a dynamic dual threat quarterback for Houston. The Cougars are loaded on offense. He's a 5th-year player, lots of experience, great upside. Phil Dracovic, if he stays on the field, Matt, Jerkovich has incredible upside with his legs. I love his receiver, Zay Flowers. Boston College could be very interesting this year. And the home run is clearly Anthony Richardson, Matt. There's a lot of risk. I have questions about him as a pocket passer, anticipatory passer, NFL prospects, but that's for further down the road. From a CFF standpoint, if Anthony Richardson stays on the field for 12 games with his ability to rush, you're looking at a young man who has 800 to 1,000 yards rushing, double-digit touchdowns on the ground. If you get 2,500 passing yards and like 16 to 20 touchdowns, Matt, you're looking at a top 10 quarterback. But he could also lose the job by week 4 if Florida's 1-3, right? Like there's just a wide variety of outcomes. It really depends to me on how you're building your team and the wild card. Jaron Hall of BYU. Very interesting player. I think I read he's 23 or 24. He went on a mission. So he's a little bit older of a quarterback, but he definitely has mastered the Cougars offense. Again, he could end up being great, maybe not as good as Zach Wilson, who was terrific in 2020, but he could throw 30 touchdowns and run for 4 to 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, John, one of the things I always look forward to is how do we project as best as we can what those opposing defenses, right? What's that schedule going to look like? And so, it's difficult for me to really lean into a guy like Anthony Richardson, right? Like you're playing in the SEC. So even if you play fantastic, there's somewhat of a cap as to what Florida's offense can do, right? Now, Aiden O'Connell, don't sleep on the Big Ten defenses either. Aiden O'Connell played very well last year, but is Purdue going to open it up? Are they going to give him more? And what happens at that level? I think Devin Leary at NC State is just playing right in that sweet spot, right? Because he's playing in the ACC, but it's a quarterback-friendly conference. The offenses are good in the ACC. I think sometimes we sleep on that. But you look at what in Devin Leary had the quietest, fantastic season last year. I mean, he threw the ball 431 times, which, folks, if you don't follow Wolfpack football, like that in and of itself is fairly incredible. And then you go and he completes 65% of his passes, a 35-5 touchdown interception ratio, and 3,400 yards. Now, is 3,400 yards going to be prolific for your CFF team over the course of 12 games? Maybe not. But if you're drafting him in this range where we have him, I think that's a really fantastic value point. I'm happy that he is in this top group, John, because there are a lot of good quarterbacks that got snubbed from our rankings, right? Just the way we did consensus. So I'm glad Leary made it into this group. I think he's definitely worth the highlight. All right, John, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes here. Some very interesting names to think about here. We're going to start at 18 with Jake Haener, the quarterback for Fresno State. Yes, not the Washington Huskies. He briefly was heading that way. We went back to Fresno State. Number 17, Talia Tagovailoa out of Maryland. 16, Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA, returning, John, for his 17th college season. Believe it or not, an actual statistic there. Frank Harris coming in at number 15 out of UTSA. John, the Roadrunners, it seems, really vacated a lot of talent, but Frank Harris is still very, very talented. I'm glad he's in our top 15. Grayson McCall out of Coastal Carolina is number 14. And rounding out this second group for us, John, number 13, Garrett Schrader out of Syracuse. Somebody that folks maybe aren't as keen on as they should be. Who jumps out to you, John, out of this group? Get us started.
I like this group again. I have no problem taking one of these quarterbacks if you are going to wait at the position. Now, there is a wide variety of perspectives on all of these players. So I do think it depends on a viewer's personal preference. If I'm looking for a high floor mat with a nice ceiling, Frank Harris out of UTSA is my guy. Dual threat quarterback who has had over 525 yards rushing each of the past 2 seasons. UTSA is loaded on offense. I believe they were 12-2 last year, if my memory serves me. I love his floor, and he has a top 12 ceiling. I think last year, let me look, I think he finished 13th in CFF scoring. I just can't find it quickly right now, but he finished right around there, right on the border of top 12. Grayson McCall, a lot of different perspectives on him. Coastal Carolina has been a darling in college football for the last 2 years, Matt. But he got hurt late in the season, and he didn't play in the spring ball. Obviously, he's one of the quarterbacks I'm going to be watching closely. But if Grayson McCall gets back on the field for Coastal Carolina, he has potential NFL prospects. I have him as a third-round grade right now. I'm interested in him. I don't think he's a second-round target. Right at this point, he needs to show me more. But with his ability to throw the football, and Matt, did you know he set the FBS efficiency record with over his ranking was 207 last year. He was the most efficient quarterback in the history of college football. I'm sorry. That means something. The young man can play. Hopefully he's 100% healthy. We're going to have to watch him in training camp. Garrett Schrader is fascinating. We have a change of offensive coordinators for the Orange. We don't know how they're going to run the offense. The new coordinator coached at Virginia last year. Brennan Armstrong was a star. Schrader isn't the thrower, Matt, that Brennan Armstrong is. But Schrader, what did he have last year? I think he had 14 rushing touchdowns.
14, yep.
Yeah,
14.
He was amazing with his legs. He has 1,000-yard upside. I like Schrader a lot. He's fallen in drafts, Matt. He's a great second quarterback with the rushing upside. Jake Haener, if you're looking for a floor, he's your guy. Matt, he's 30 touchdowns, almost 44,000 yards in the book. I don't think he's going to throw 45 or 50. He's not that offense isn't that type of offense. He's not going to run a lot, but I like Haener. And my personal favorite is Tagovailoa. I like him a ton. Matt, he falls so far in drafts. He's my third quarterback on 3 of my 4 drafts already. The upside is tremendous. 4 offensive linemen returning. And I know this is not hyperbole. Maryland might have a top 3 wide receiver core in the Big Ten. With Copeland coming over from, I think it was Florida or Miami. Florida. They're loaded if Demas gets back on the field. I like him a lot this year.
Yeah, you look at it, John, 2 players that I want to just build on a little bit here, because I think it's, college fantasy football, John, can be so interesting in your perception of players, in the way value really shows up. And because you look at somebody like Tagovailoa, right? Folks have this bad taste of him, right? Because what happened? Maryland got the prime time, the Big Ten Friday night game against Iowa, and the game that everybody saw against Maryland was him throwing 5 interceptions in one game. Johnny threw 6 interceptions in his other 12 games of the season, right? But everybody saw, by the way, against a very good Iowa defense. I mean, Iowa was ranked in the top 5 at one point, right? During that stretch, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely.
And the offense was not the reason.
No.
And so if you look at his season, and here's something, that's really important for me, John, 474 passing attempts, right? I'm going to talk about this a little bit more with a quarterback closer to the top for us, but it's volume for me. When I'm looking at the quarterback position in CFF, it's volume, and he completed 69% of those 474 attempts. So if we, 3,800 passing yards, if we get those touchdowns up, John, and the interceptions can stay the same, they don't even have to go down, then all of a sudden you have a really good quarterback here with Tagovailoa, and you're getting the value based on this limited perception that folks are clinging on to. And then the other guy that I do want to just build on a little bit more, John, because I think it's so key in college fantasy football, right? You talked about Schrader's system that he's playing in, right? And it's a new system for Syracuse. They ran the ball a little bit too much. They want to open it up a little bit more this year. But you mentioned it's the offensive coordinator change. So when you're looking at the quarterback position, John, how much does system factor into the way that you project forward value on players?
Oh my God, it's huge. I mean, in college fantasy football, I think it's even more important than the NFL. And we've all, most of those of us who have played college fantasy football, you probably started at the NFL level, just more popular of a game. And we all know how important system is in the NFL. I'll say this. I think in college, it's even more important. You need to understand what the coordinators are trying to accomplish, who they are trying to get active in the game. Schrader, if he can take a little bit more efficiency, and I think he completed like 52% of his passes last year, Matt.
52.6, yeah.
There you go. It was not pretty, but if he could make an uptick to 56, 57, just a little bit more efficient, right? That will help him move the chain. They have a two-man offense right now, Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader. They're going to dominate near the goal line, Matt, and I don't see that changing. The RPO with those two players in the goal line is a major problem. So the system matters. And I was a big believer in Virginia last year, Matt. I have to believe this new coach is going to bring in and upgrade this offense at Syracuse. Let me get his name. I don't under why I forgot his name. I think it's Levy, but go ahead. Now I can't find it, of course. I apologize.
We'll have our research department work on that here, John. While we jump into our top our 7 through 12 here. So we're going into the top half of our quarterback rankings. And this is a really fun group to talk about. I'm excited for it. Coming in at number 12, Cameron Ward. Yes, FCS transfer Cameron Ward came in our consensus number 12, now playing for the Washington State Cougars. Number 11, the aforementioned Brennan Armstrong with Virginia. Number 10, Tanner Mordecai out of SMU. Number 9, UCF transfer, now starting quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners, Dylan Gabriel, with a brief stop at UCLA in between, unofficially. Will Rogers from Mississippi State comes in at number 8. And John, Quinn Ewers comes in at number 7 here, the Texas quarterback. I can't even technically say starting quarterback yet, but yet number 7 in our consensus rankings. You want to start with Ewers or you want to start elsewhere?
I'm going to start elsewhere just for now. And the name that might surprise some people, if you aren't like a diehard and you haven't been following college football all off season like you and I, Matt, Cameron Ward of Washington State is the interesting name. He played at Incarnate Ward at the FCS level, everyone. He's coming into Washington State, and his former coach, Eric Morris, took over the Cougars this offseason. So you have a coach and a quarterback moving up in a level of competition with the same offense. Matt, check out these numbers for him last year. 4,648 passing yards, 47 touchdowns. Now, I don't imagine him throwing 47 at the Pac-12. However, it is the Pac-12, and if the young man hits, he could be phenomenal. Matt, he's 6'2", 223 pounds. On film, the little bit of film I got, it's not like you get a ton of Incarnate Ward film. He looks like he has the tools to succeed. He clearly knows the offensive scheme that he's coming into. I expect the volume, Matt, to be huge. I love him as a second quarterback. If you can match him up with, we'll go into like a top 6 on our next slide, and then you get Ward, that is great because the ceiling is so high with this young man in this system. Now, there is danger. moving up a level, harder competition, we have not seen him do it. So you have to embrace a little bit of risk here. Let's go to Ewers first, and then I'll move forward because you had mentioned him. I don't believe
before you get into the Ewers breakdown, this is interesting because it's one of the bigger gaps that we had between our rankings. You had Ewers at 5. I had him at 10. He ends up 7 on our consensus ranking. So just a little bit of a gap there. Maybe that's risk tolerance. I'm sure you're going to get into that a little bit, but yeah, go ahead.
Also, like with me, it's all about system. I believe in Coach Sark. I do, Matt. And I don't believe the coach speak. I don't believe for a second Hudson Card is going to be the starting quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. Hey, color me crazy. Maybe I'm nuts. Quinn Ewers, a 5-star prospect who ended up leaving early for Ohio State, spent a semester in the Buckeyes locker room. Obviously, with C.J. Stroud, he wasn't going to get on the field this year, right? He's got all the tools. Was he perfect in the spring game? No, Matt. He is 19. He's in front of the Texas Longhorns on a new campus. Did you expect the young man to come out and ball out with Bryce Young? Not yet. The talent around him, Matt, the coaching staff, Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy. Matt, he's loaded. There's no excuse for him not to succeed in this offense. He has the best running back in the nation, one of the top 4 wide receivers, and the Longhorns addressed their number one concern. Their offensive line has been terrible. If you've been watching the Longhorns the last 5 years, terrible. Matt, they brought in 6 offensive linemen. They retool. They don't have to be
best line class. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, they don't have to be top 3. All Texas has to do is go from like the 108th ranked line to the 50th ranked line in college football. And do you have any idea how much improved that would be for the Longhorns? So Ewers is in a great position to succeed. And I'm banking on the coach, the system, and the teammates. I know I'm higher on him than most people out there, but I do believe in this system, which leads me to Will Rogers. I've been playing.
Oh, you're going to take my guy.
That's my guy. You know what? Then I'll take Tanner Mordecai. I'll let you have Will Rogers.
You can't take Will Rogers from me, man. I mean, I have Will Rogers on all my C2C rosters. I mean, I grab him everywhere. And some would argue in my mock drafts that I'm taking him too high. I'm taking him round 4. I'm taking him round 5. I'm willing to go high on Will Rogers because, John, he threw the ball 683 times last year, and he completed 73.9% of those passes, 4,739 yards, 36 touchdowns. John, the only quarterbacks that got ranked above Will Rogers for me are quarterbacks that can gain rushing yards, because Will Rogers isn't going to do that. He's not getting you your rushing yards. He's not getting you your rushing touchdowns. But in terms of the ability to throw the ball and get it done, it's Will Rogers for me. And I have consistently gotten, John, the Mississippi State stack with Whaley. And I've been known to get the triple stack. Throw Marks in there too, because they come at a nice value. So I'm all about the Mississippi State Bulldogs offense. I don't care if they're playing good SEC defenses, because Mississippi State doesn't have a secondary. They need to pass to keep up. And that is the system that Mike Leach wants there to be. So I'll go ahead and let you get into Mordecai.
No, hey, I agree with you on Will Rogers. He's definitely the highest ranked, to me, pocket passer without any upside with his legs. You're 100% right. Tanner Mordecai is interesting because I think people are scared off because they have a very interesting redshirt freshman named Preston Stone, Matt, at SMU. However, Mordecai set a record with 39 touchdowns for the Mustangs last year. They were a very efficient offense. Now they have turnover at the wide receiver. Danny Gray, who ended up being drafted by the 49ers. He's in the NFL. Reggie Roberson, he left. He's not with the program. They brought in, I believe, 5 wide receivers in the transfer portal. They have some turnover. So what does that tell me, Matt? You have to go with the quarterback. You need stability on the offense. Well, are you really going to bench the quarterback who led you to so many victories, 39 touchdowns, nearly 4,000 yards? Mordecai is very efficient and very good. I expect him to at least open the season as the starter, which means, Matt, I'm going to grab the value. He's falling down draft boards. I like Tanner Mordecai a ton in that system for the Mustangs, so I'm all in on Tanner Mordecai. And then the player we alluded to. Oh, sorry. I was just going to mention the last one, Brennan Armstrong. He's coming at a great value, Matt. We mentioned turnover at Virginia. People are afraid of the new offense, and I understand that. Brennan Armstrong's the best player on that offense, and they have weapons, the Cavaliers. I still expect him to be good. I don't think he's going to put up last year's numbers, which were astronomical. But, Matt, if you get him as like the 17th quarterback off the board, I absolutely love him.
John, before we go into our top 6 here, the research department has pulled it out. And the Syracuse offensive coordinator is Robert Anai, who came from Virginia, but he also took Jason Beck, the quarterback coach. So 2 of the Virginia, two members of the Virginia offense coming over to Syracuse. All right, John, number 6, Sam Hartman, quarterback out of Wake Forest. Number 5, Malik Cunningham out of Louisville. Number 4, Caleb Williams, now with the USC Trojans. Number 3, Hendon Hooker of the Tennessee Vols. Number 2, Bryce Young for Alabama, which means, John, C.J. Stroud is sitting atop. I believe C.J. Stroud, looking all the way down our board, is the only player that we had ranked in the same position, which was number 1 overall. Quite frankly, John, I don't think you can go wrong picking out of this top 6. I think you're getting an impact player no matter what. So for me, it's value. It's looking at the board and who I can get the cheapest, because I think we have some really good impact players here.
Matt, one strategy that I'm using this year, and I know it's counter to what most CFF experts are doing. I like getting 2 of these top 6. I know the consensus out there seems to be wait on the quarterback position, and I understand that strategy. But, Matt, I always like to zig when everyone zags. I like acquiring 2 of these. One team, I got C.J. Stroud and Hendon Hooker. Another team, I got Bryce Young and Hendon Hooker. I have one draft with Bryce Young and Caleb Williams, which I don't think you're going to be able to do anymore because Caleb Williams has worked his way into the first round.
So, John, when you're doing this, you're using your first 2 rounds of picks, right?
Most of the time, unless – so what happened in one draft, I got Stroud at number 2 and Hendon Hooker in round 3 coming back around.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
I couldn't pass up that value. And remember, most CFF leagues are 2 quarterbacks. So to me, if I can get 2 of these 6, Matt, I know I'm sacrificing a little scoring at the other positions, but I believe in my ability to find talent like at pick number 26 at wide receiver, or pick up a waiver wire like Devin Tompkins out of Utah State last year, who was just a stud off the waiver wire. Dontavian Wicks out of Virginia, another waiver wire wide receiver. So if I can get 2 of these 6, oh my God, Matt, I don't have to worry about decisions in my quarterback position. You just play them every week unless it's a bye. And I have 70-point upside in any given week. Now, the interesting player is Sam Hartman. He has more rushing yardage than people give him credit for. And I think he scored 6 touchdowns, if my memory serves me. Let me just look real quickly at my stats here. He had 11 touchdowns rushing. Okay. I have him projected at 6. He had 11. I don't expect him to get double-digit touchdowns on the ground again. 364 yards rushing, 39 touchdowns. Absolutely loves Sam Hartman. He finishes the number 3 quarterback last year in CFF scoring, Matt. Malik Cunningham, we all remember, I think he was at 6 touchdowns. If you played him last year, he had 6 touchdowns in
against
the playoffs.
Mississippi, right?
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
Thursday. It was like that Thursday night game. It was early in the season. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was unbelievable. 20 rushing touchdowns, Matt. The only quarterback with over 1,000 yards rushing last year at the FBS level. Absolutely love him. Caleb Williams, to me, Matt, is the X factor. He's in Lincoln Riley's offense. He's a sophomore transfer from Oklahoma. Matt, he could be the number 1 quarterback in college fantasy football. Last year in limited action, let me see here. Why can't I find him? Now all of a sudden I can't find him on my list. I think he had double-digit touchdowns, and now all of a sudden I can't.
21 touchdowns to 4 interceptions last year, completed 64% of his 211 passing attempts, ran the ball 79 times for 6 touchdowns.
That's it, 6 touchdowns. If he pulls the Jalen Hurts or the Baker Mayfield, which is in the realm of his outcomes, Matt, he could be the number 1 scoring quarterback. The reason I can't put him at the top, Stroud, Young, and Hooker have all shown me the ability to be stars over the course of an entire season. Can Caleb Williams do it? Yes. Has he? Not yet. So that's why I have the other 3 ranked higher. And if any of our viewers, you know how good CJ Stroud is. Bryce Young's a returning Heisman candidate, and I'm all in on Hendon Hooker. Matt, out of these 6, what do you think? Who do you like?
Well, John, I think what's really interesting for me, right? If you look at our top 6 versus our 7 through 12, right? Like, look at our 7 through 12. You have Quinn Ewers, who hasn't thrown a meaningful pass. You have Dylan Gabriel, who transferred from UCF. You have Cam Ward, who's coming up from the FCS. We're leaning into a lot of risk, and we did that a lot throughout the top, the first 16 or so picks here, 18 picks. But you look at our top 6, and we're taking what we know, right? The Wake Forest offense. It's very unique. Sam Hartman has executed it. Malik Cunningham has played 36 years in college football. You know what you're getting with Malik Cunningham. So the only one here who, and of course, Hendon Hooker absolutely executed a Josh Heupel's high octane offense last year. The only one who on paper, it seems like has a change of scenery is Caleb Williams, but he doesn't really even have a change of scenery. He's got the same head coach, right? He went with Lincoln Riley to USC. He even brought over some of his wide receivers with him to USC. So I find it interesting for us, for some folks, right? ADP kind of gets settled, especially in our analyst mock drafts, but it's harder for ADP to settle, I find, in general in CFF versus NFL fantasy football. And so when folks are trying to decide, exactly, maybe they do see Malik Cunningham or Sam Hartman falling to that 3rd round and they're double, checking, making sure they're not missing anything. I find that at the top, if you can lean into those systems and those performances that then that's what I'm confident doing, right? And with the quarterback position, it's so easy to let the system lead you, right? Wide receiver, running back, it's helpful, but you know what you're getting out of the quarterback, right? In an offense, what that head coach wants to do. So for me, I know I mentioned this at the top, but I'm cool with any of these guys. And you mentioned it, if you can double tap them at the top, even better. We don't need to get into CJ Stroud. We don't need to get into Bryce Young. 1 versus 2. Some people would spend a whole podcast on that. I don't care. They're both going to be good. You know what I mean? You're going to be in a good
absolutely.
If you take CJ Stroud, you're going to be in a good spot if you take Bryce Young. What I do want to do, John, I want to talk a little bit about our sleepers. We both highlighted 2 sleeper quarterbacks here. And well, let's go ahead. Let's get you on your sleepers here. You started with Clay Millen out of Colorado State and Cam Rising out of Utah.
So I chose 2 different sleepers here because I want to show you how you have to balance projection with veteran leadership and success in the past. Clay Millen is a projection. Jay Norvell and Matt Mumme, they coordinated the Nevada offense for the past couple of years with Carson Strong, Romeo Doubs, Turner, the tight end. We saw prolific production out of Mumme's offense under Norvell at Nevada. Well, Matt, what happens? Norvell, which I still can't believe, he stays within the Mountain West, which is fascinating because you don't usually see that in a group of 5 conference. Norvell slides over from Utah to Colorado State. He brings with him Clay Millen, the quarterback. Millen is a redshirt freshman. He knows Mumme's system, Matt. He probably would be the quarterback replacing Carson Strong if the whole team stayed at Nevada. They also brought 2 wide receivers with them whom Millen is familiar with. So if you look at system and scheme and you project that Millen knows how to orchestrate this offense, I love him as a 3rd quarterback, as a sleeper. Because the upside, Matt, in the Mountain West, high points scored, I love Millen there. And then I'm going to take I believe in roster construction, so it kind of depends. Do I want a flyer with the projection, or do I want someone like Cameron Rising, who already showed me last year that he is a very, very good quarterback? He led Utah to the Pac-12 championship, their first time ever, Matt. They ended up in the Rose Bowl. They ended up playing a great game. They lost to Ohio State. It was one of the best bowl games of the year if you didn't get to see it, but I always watch the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. It's just, I'm an old man. Rose Bowl used to literally be the granddaddy of them all. They're not anymore. But Cameron Rising ended up, he's a dual threat quarterback. He had 499 yards rushing, Matt, last year with 6 touchdowns, and he had 20 touchdowns passing and only 5 interceptions. There is a great number 3 quarterback for your bye weeks with a really high floor and a nice ceiling. I like to decide when I'm building my roster, if I have 2 sleepers, I might not take Clay Millen as my 3rd quarterback. I'll probably go Cameron Rising because I want a nice floor. If I have 2 solid studs, I might go for the home run in Clay Millen because the upside is so tremendous in that system. So I wanted to show how I roster build and 2 quarterbacks I like who are sleepers, Matt.
All right. And I'm going to go ahead and take a different direction here with my sleepers, which I think is important. I think what's really good is that we're showing you there's a lot of different approaches. My first one's going to be Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina. I've kind of been beating this drum all off season, but this idea that Spencer Rattler just all of a sudden got bad is really wild to me, right? Rattler was always high tools and questionable decision-making, right? But Rattler went from a highly coveted prospect and CFF guy to all of a sudden not even relevant enough to get into our top 24 or even in the discussion, right? And I think it's for a couple of reasons. One, again, folks, have this idea that he lost it or, he's not that special player. Folks, he's starting every game for the South Carolina Gamecocks, barring injury, right? Like Spencer Rattler is the dude. And a lot of folks, I think, have this idea of what the South Carolina offensive identity is. But there is no identity, right? This is Shane Beamer heading into his 2nd year. Shane Beamer was on the Oklahoma offense with Spencer Rattler. That's the program that he came from to head to South Carolina. If you think that Spencer Rattler is not going to be the focal point of this offense, folks, I do not know what to tell you. And there's this other, perception of playing in the SEC that he's going to get run over by these defenses. But I'm just going to quickly run through the South Carolina schedule. And folks, stop me when you're scared of the secondary. Georgia State week 1, Arkansas week 2. All right, we're sitting on week 3 against Georgia. All right. But then it's Charlotte, it's South Carolina State, it's Kentucky, it's Texas A&M. And again, Kentucky, Texas A&M, good teams, but I'm not super concerned about their defense, right? Their secondary in particular, Mizzou, Vanderbilt, Florida, a little nervous about Florida, Tennessee, I'm a Vol fan. The secondary is not good. And then Clemson. So he's got 3 tough games playing in the SEC. Realistically thinking about it, Spencer Rattler can be a good quarterback for free. You're getting him for free. And then the other guy I'll mention, John, is Blake Shapen out of Baylor. Shapen won the job straight up out of spring camp. It's really hard to emphasize how rare it is to be named the starting quarterback of a battle in spring camp, because when a coach does that, they're essentially guaranteeing that the quarterback that lost the battle is going to transfer. And Baylor saw enough out of Shapen last year. He threw just 86 balls in 5 games, but he completed 72% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. And so he's somebody here who the coaching staff has a lot of confidence in. He's playing in the Big 12. That leaves a lot of opportunity. And one guy, John, that I didn't even realize needed to be on the sleeper slide because I didn't realize that you snubbed him out of the rankings. He was 15 on my rankings, and that's Tyler Shuck. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Tyler Shuck is the starting quarterback for Texas Tech unless he loses this camp battle. And who is the offensive coordinator now at Texas Tech? It's Zach Kittley, who ran the Western Kentucky offense with Bailey Zappi last year. Shuck has a big arm. We've been waiting a while for him to do it. But man, if he pairs up with Zach Kittley, it could be absolutely amazing. It's a great example of looking at system and how you can project forward. So if I'm paying nothing for Tyler Shuck, if I'm paying last round draft capital, I'll take it all day. Guess what? He ends up losing the battle. Who cares? Drop him week 1, pick up somebody else. I'm taking Tyler Shuck, man. I love it. Zach Kittley offense all day long. There we go, John. That is our top 24 consensus college fantasy football quarterbacks, as well as 4 sleepers plus a bonus sleeper here. Let us know, again, if you're watching on YouTube, there's some good players that got snubbed. You have some bones to pick with us if you'd like. Again, if you're listening, chop it up with us in the Discord. Check us out, patreon.com/thefFeducator. We're talking college fantasy football, Devy, Campus to Canton, Dynasty, pretty much everything all day long. As always, we appreciate you checking out this episode of